The Jake Asman Show will begin shortly. Thanks to all these great Patreon members who help support the show. Get your super chats ready. Jake will be here in just a moment. If you love the New York Jets, this is the place to be. And now, the Jake Asman Show.
We are live from Radio Row, and ladies and gentlemen, it is time to talk all things Jets. Joe Caporoso will join us from Badlands, and then Jets quarterback Tyrod Taylor will be joining the show. It's the Jake Asman Show, live from San Fran, and it starts right now.
Live from Radio Row in San Francisco, California. It's Super Bowl week, baby. Patriots and Seahawks rematch. Some of the biggest names in sports and entertainment will be right here. Put your seatbelts on and get ready, Asmaniacs. It's the Jake Asman Show.
Here we go, Jet fans, live from Radio Row. It is chaos behind us, and joining us is our guy, Joe Caporoso, half of the Badlands team. We had CR Connor Rogers on the other day, and Joe in town is nice enough to join us now. What's up, Joe?
What's up, man? It's great to be here. Always good to talk in the offseason about our Jets.
Will the Jets ever be here? This game in our lifetime?
I would like for them to be here while I could still walk. Ideally before my kids get into college, but I don't know. It does feel a bit far away, doesn't it?
And you now have, what, 3 kids?
Somehow,
You just had another kid not that long ago.
7-year-old, 5-year-old, a newborn baby. Nobody, who needs to sleep? Sleep's overrated.
I mean, the funniest thing is when people come up to me and you, I'm sure, talk about the Jets, it's like we're not even talking about the Super Bowl. How about a 9-8 season as the 7th seed, get in, end this playoff drought? I mean, come on.
9-8 would be exceptional because, as you said, and as you reminded me before we got on air, we're still in year 15 of this playoff drought. And, how about a top 16 offense in the NFL? How about winning 9 games in a season? I'd be thrilled with that.
It is just mind-boggling how we got here, but here we go. Going into this offseason, what is your feel about this franchise right now? Can you find reasons to be optimistic because of the cap space and the picks, or just the way year one went for this regime and the head coach in particular? Are you even struggling to find things to really grab onto?
It was a very hard final 5 games to watch and sit through. I know they were tanking. I know who was out in the field, but losing to Miami like that, losing to New England like that, losing to Buffalo like that, it's always just going to hit a Jet fan a different way. I will say, when you look at this depth chart on paper in May, it is going to look better than Jet fans are assuming it is right now. It just has to, with having 4 picks in the top 44, with having over $100 million in cap space. Someone will take their money. They will get better players here, and not starting Brady Cook and playing Jossier Taylor at corner and guys off the practice squad that even you and I don't know, when they are back to having Malachi Moore out there, Azareye'h Thomas, Mason Taylor, some semblance of a normal quarterback, I hope. I think it will look a little better than people expect. I'm not saying they're going to be a playoff team next year. I'm not saying they're not going to have the lowest win total on Vegas. They probably will. But I do think on paper the roster is going to be better than they're getting credit for, and they do have a good foundation on some spots in the offense, with the offensive line, with Garrett Wilson. We'll see what happens with Brees. But it is nice finally to go into an offseason and not need 2 tackles and a guard. They do have that settled, and we'll see how the draft goes.
Need the quarterback, need to figure that out. We'll get into that. But while you and I were here in the Bay Area, the Jets officially hired an offensive coordinator. Frank Reich is now the guy. What was your take on Reich, and what are now reasonable expectations for Frank Reich in the year 2026 as a play caller?
I think it's an okay hire. I think we knew it was coming, so I don't think any of us were shocked by it finally becoming official. I'm very curious who he hires, who's his quarterback coach, who's his passing game coordinator. Does he bring in a younger mind to challenge him a little bit and maybe have some more forward-thinking concepts? He obviously has been out of the league for a couple of years. We've always wanted a veteran voice on the Jets offensive staff. I think a lot of us were hoping you'd keep Tanner Engstrand to call the plays, let someone like Wright kind of consult. He's going to have the whole thing now. I will judge when I see what kind of staff he builds. Just like with Brian Duker and Aaron Glenn, they have a good first step, getting Carl Dunbar back as their defensive line coach. Can Reich have a couple of hires that get Jet fans excited? You're going to go in with more skepticism than optimism. The reality is that it's been about 5 years since Reich's been good in the NFL, so he does have something to prove. He is just an offensive coordinator. We're not asking him to be the head coach. And there's certainly a world where there's nowhere to go but up from their offense last year. They effectively had the worst offense in the NFL. So it's not like he has a really tough act to follow or anything like that.
Does hiring Frank Reich tip the Jets' hand potentially on the type of quarterback they would be going after? What are your thoughts on that?
Maybe. I don't want to go too crazy trying to guess because it's been a while since he's been in the league. I know he has some history with Brissett and Wentz, and those names will get linked to them. but it's so far removed. It's hard to say that the Jets are going to build their quarterback strategy around their 64-year-old offensive coordinator. I think if they were going to take a quarterback in the draft, they're still going to take a quarterback in the draft. I don't think Reich's going to change that. They also have very limited options, right? They're either going to take Ty Simpson or they're going to take Garrett Nussmeier in one of the round 2, maybe round 3 with Nussmeier if they find a way to maneuver the board. But it's not like there's 1,000 options you're going to approach in the NFL draft. And for a veteran, it's wide open. I could lift 50 names right now, and any of them could end up on the Jets via trade, via free agency. It's kind of as wide open as I ever remember it. At least at this time last year, there was some rumblings. They were interested in Fields. I don't think any of us were surprised when they landed Fields. I don't know who I would make the betting odds favorite right now to be their starting quarterback. Is it Jacoby Brissett? Is it Marcus Mariota? Kirk Cousins? It's those type of names, but they all are probably like 5%. There's not someone who you're like, yeah, that guy's probably going to be the Jets quarterback.
Some of them are also under contract, these names, right? We talk about Mac Jones or Jameis Winston or Brissett. You got to probably trade for these guys if you're going to get them, which also complicates just how bold do the Jets want to be trying to land like a bridge in all likelihood QB for a year.
You're giving up assets and resources. Also, why are the Giants trading Jameis Winston?
Right.
Jackson Dart probably going to get banged up. You need a backup. Why are the Texans trading Davis Mills? Maybe the Cardinals, when they get rid of Kyler, they're not going to want to get rid of Jacoby Brissett. So these things sound good in theory. It's easier said than done. That's what Darren Muji's paid for, to find a way to figure it out. To his credit, he did a great job with trades last year. I think he nailed it with Sauce trade, Quinnen trade, Harrison Phillips, Jawan Briggs. There's a good precedent there of him being smart in the veteran market, and he's going to have to get smart and crafty to figure out quarterback because there's no easy slam dunk answer. I mean, you know this. Any name that you throw out to a Jet fan, you immediately get 15 people being like, this guy's terrible.
Yeah.
But there isn't that perfect name. It's not easy to figure out quarterback.
The issue they have is there's no obvious name, as you bring up. It almost, to me, feels like, Joe, they need two. They need two guys in that room, and then you're protected going into the draft, where if the board doesn't break a certain way, you don't feel like you need to reach because, we don't have that quarterback that we could count on, that we could sell ownership on. Like, I'm all about the Jets taking a swing on someone in the draft. I don't love the idea of doing it at 2. I despise it, in fact. No. I don't even like it at 16, but they have the 2 second-round picks. Okay, I could live with it if they did it there, but you got to have some veterans in the room so you're not just relying on, like, Kirk Cousins or Marcus Mariota, and then it's Garrett Nussmeier and nobody else.
Yeah. Well, we know how Jet seasons go. Every Jet season, 3 or 4 quarterbacks play, no matter what. We always get down to a 3rd or a 4th guy. I don't want them to reach for a quarterback. I agree. You have 4 picks in the top 44. Build the roster. Make it better. If it's the opportunity is there and a Ty Simpson is falling and you could trade up from 33 and grab him at 30 and get the 5th year, great. If you feel good about Garrett Nussmeier's value at 44, or you trade back a little bit and get another asset and take him at 70, great. Once it gets past that, you're really just throwing darts. You know, you're taking like a Drew Aller in round 4, round 5. You're not counting on him to play it all this year. But they should overdo it at quarterback because they always end up playing multiple guys. And I'm just interested to hear around the combine what names start actually getting leaked and linked to them, and how aggressive they're going to be. Are they going to chase Malik Willis? Are Jet fans down for 3 years, $70 million for Malik Willis? After
think about it. What happened with Fields? 2 years, 40, and 30 guaranteed.
I mean, Willis is going to be a lot of competition. He's going to get a lot of money. And are you going to commit in that way? I don't know. I mean, you're dealing with a desperate coaching staff. They have to show progress, so they could.
Comments, questions, super chats, cut the line. Unlike a lot of our pre-recorded interviews, including an interview that we have coming up with Tyrod Taylor, an interview we already dropped on the channel today with Gary V, an interview that dropped on the channel today with A.D. Mitchell, and one to come with Harrison Phillips. Joe is live in person right now at 1:18 p.m. Pacific time, talking Jets. So if you guys have a question for Joe, write it in. This is also the last day to enter the weekly Asmaniac raffle. Football Friday raffle tomorrow featuring a signed Namath helmet, Super Bowl 3 ticket display, signed G5 helmet, signed Klecko jersey, and a signed CJ Mosley jersey. Shout out to our guy, Dominic D'Angelo, for being the first to gift a membership during the show. He is in our weekly raffle tomorrow for one. Joe, in terms of Aaron Glenn, fan base obviously down on him. How could you not be after year 1? What can he do in year 2 to be here for a year 3? Like, how drastic are the changes going to have to be, his improvements? Break down in your mind what needs to get better for him to have a shot to actually be here for a 3rd season.
I mean, for him to be here in year 3, there has to be meaningful strides in just winning more games. He's going to have to win at least 7 or 8 games. How they close the season will matter. You can't, lose your last 4 again, or there's going to be too much momentum to sweep him out.
You probably can't start 1-5.
You also can't start 1-5, right? So they have to be around 500. And look, if they go 7-10, I don't think anyone's going to say it's a disappointment. Their over-under is probably going to be 4.5 or 5.5. Honestly, 7-10 will probably be seen as overachieving, depending on what happens at quarterback. But can he improve the game management? How is his recruiting, right? It's a good sign they were able to get Carl Dunbar. That's like a credible, solid positional coach. Can he do that on offense? Can he do that in the secondary coach? Can he do that to fill out the rest of his staff? There's a lot of guys they got to hire. And in free agency, can he get a couple guys here who can implement his system and his culture and the style of defense he wants to play? They'll always be linked with Anzalone and some of the other guys that him and Duke
are you ready for that emergency pod? Jet signing Alex Anzalone in free agency.
That feels like an inevitable one.
Yes.
I almost want to pre-record it now. The question is, like, can you get 3 or 4 new starters here between defense and offense that you feel good about? Can you spend this money in a productive way? And he's got a big hill to climb. Probably the biggest advantage he has is there's no expectations for him going into this year. I think even the most optimistic Jet fan would say it's more likely than not he's not going to be the coach in 2027. So he's got a lot to work against. I do think if we go back in time and remember when the team was 3-9 and they'd won 3 of 5, there was progress then. And then it was Brady Cook and everything kind of went off the ledge. Let's see how they start next year. Because I do agree, like what you said, if they start 1-6, 1-7, there's going to be too much heat and it's going to be too big of a hole for him to dig out of.
If they start that bad, I'm not convinced he actually would make it through the year. And there's probably some credence to those making the joke after they hired Reich the other day. Yeah. Well, the Jets just basically hired their intern coach for when they fired Glenn.
I mean, it's interesting. Woody had a long stretch where he didn't fire people in season, right? And then it was Saleh in season. It was Douglas in season. It was Wilkes in season. So, he's old. He's 80. He might be a little quicker on pulling that trigger now. I know what Glenn's contract is, but that's not crazy money for NFL ownership. We'll see. I hope they surprise us. I hope they have a better than expected offseason. They have the money to spend. They have the picks to use. There are more pieces on this roster than I think they get credit for, but also a lot of guys who have plenty to prove. Like, we like Azareye'h Thomas and Malachi Moore and Mason Taylor. They didn't play a ton last year. They got to show that they can make strides in year 2. And some of that goes to Glenn too. Where is the player development at?
And that to me was my biggest concern in year 1, beyond just the record. That's obvious.
Yep.
Who got better on this team? Who actually was coached up? You want to tell me Jawan Briggs? Great. Like,
yep.
If that's all we could point to after year 1 of a brand new regime, when the head coach said they were going to be all about development and coaching, man, it's coaching, and everything that Glenn said that was taking shots at Saleh's coaching staff from previous years, for it to look like that is, to me, the most alarming thing, in addition to obviously the record and the 0-7 start.
Yeah, I mean, he needs some wins to point to, right? Can Jermaine Johnson have a better year next year if they keep him when he's healthier? Does Will McDonald become more consistent instead of just having a big game here or there and then being quiet for 5 weeks? At linebacker, Sherwood better without Steve Wilkes around? Does Moore and Thomas take strides in year 2? You're going to really look to the defensive players to see if you could have a couple more success stories like you had with Briggs this year. You feel good about what you saw from Membu in year 1. Can he keep building on that? Can Olu and Tittman continue to improve? So I agree. He's going to need some player development wins to point to, especially now that he's going to have a new staff end-to-end, except for Chris Bancho.
It's unreal. First super chat of the day is from J-Boy. Player development, WTF is that?
Yes, it's not something the Jets have done enough of in our lifetime, and they're going to have plenty of young players between last year and this year to get it right on.
Well, if you look at the team, what's crazy to me about the dynamics of the Jets is how most of the fan base feels about like the overall state, but the roster itself is not completely bereft of talent in some key areas. You already highlighted the offensive line: Garrett Wilson, A.D. Mitchell, John Mechie, Mason Taylor. Let's say they bring back Brees. You still have Braylon Allen and Isaiah Davis. Like, it's not like this is an expansion level roster. Like, there are some pieces here. If they could actually be coached up and they could find some competent quarterback play, they should be a competitive team. It's just asking for a lot, because every time we outline what can be done, it never happens. And that's how you have a 15-year playoff drought where the last 10 you struggle to win more than 7 games.
I agree. I mean, you cannot be losing by 20 to 30 points every week. You cannot be scoring 1 touchdown a week. They have to find a way to be competitive, and be competitive in a hard division with Josh Allen and Drake May and whatever the Dolphins are going to turn over next year. There's not going to be a lot of patience for 34-7 losses to the Bills next year, right? You have to find ways to throw punches and be competitive and maximize the talent that you have.
What to you is the ideal draft for Joe Caporoso with the 4 picks in the top 40?
I mean, as it stands right now, it's pretty hard to go wrong at 2 with either Bain, Reese, or Bailey. I think all 3 you can make a fair case for. I know everyone's got their flavor of the months. I I could see the Jets skewing towards Bain just with the high floor and the high motor with how lackadaisical they were on defense last year. Like everyone, I'd love to get Mekhi Lehman at 16. I don't know if he's going to be there. I do know one of their first 4 picks needs to be on a wide receiver to complement Garrett Wilson and A.D. Mitchell. I'm interested a lot in Simpson. If he falls all the way to 33, he probably won't. He will probably go in the first round. That would be nice value at 33. And if not, add to the edge rush group, add to defensive tackle, add to safety. These are 2 high picks in the second round. I also wouldn't be surprised if they traded out of 33 and tried to get themselves a 3rd-round pick and got themselves another asset. And I would be open-minded about that. They need dart throws, especially on defense.
Well, if you're going to take a quarterback and you don't love the idea of taking Simpson, let's say at 16, and maybe the value is not great at 33, but you move out of 33, get an extra 3rd, all of a sudden, maybe you could use pick 44 for the quarterback and you still have a 3rd, or vice versa. You have options. I do think they're going to not just stick and pick with their 4 picks in the top 44. The big question for me, though, what is the reaction of this fan base if they take Ty Simpson at 16?
At 16, I think 50-50. People will be excited. People always get excited when there's a new quarterback. I think Simpson's pretty clearly the second best one in this class. There was a time where there was talk of him being QB1, and then he was
Ever
hurt.
Since you watched him in person, I want to bring it up, but I have to now. You go out to watch Alabama and LSU,
He's
and all of a
off a
sudden,
cliff since then. This is what I get
Ty
for
Simpson.
This is what I get for picking a college football team for a year. I mean, at that moment, it looked like he could be the first pick in the draft, right? And then he was playing through pain. He also wasn't playing that well. Had some moments, had a nice game against Oklahoma in that comeback win. I think the question is, are you just taking him as a lottery ticket to save your job? And are they rushing him out there when he's not ready to play? And does that just damage another quarterback and prevent you in any way from taking a quarterback in 2027, which you can't when it's going to be a more loaded class? If Simpson's there at 16, I would say it's 55-45. They take him. I think people will look at that as good value by the time we get through this process. I think taking him at 2 would be insane, but crazy things happen with quarterbacks. When teams are desperate for quarterbacks, he works out well, he tests well. There could be a lot of discussion about him as a top 5 player, even though I think that's overvaluing him in this class.
Well, if they took him in the top 2, that all of a sudden now makes
you got to play week 1.
Well, for sure, and that also makes you question, you have the 3 1s in 2027. It's a better quarterback draft class. Yeah. We believe. I always say the caveat because that was supposed to be this year.
Yeah.
But if next year is better and we're not sure about the head coach, you're almost risking jeopardizing it. What are you going to allow another regime after we just paid $60 million guaranteed to the number 2 pick to take another quarterback in 2027? Sure, you could trade Ty, but you're never going to get the value of what the number 2 pick is. That's why I think if you're going to take a quarterback, it's either the earliest you could do it is 16. You cannot do it at 2.
I agree. It should not be in the discussion for them at 2. It's going to be hard to say if Simpson's there or not at 16, but if he is, it's going to be a real discussion. I would really love to get Lemon some shape. I would even trade up maybe a few picks for him. And if you're going to be smart with your other picks and trade back and recoup assets then. But this is going to be one of the main ones we're all debating up through the NFL draft. Are you going to take that quarterback, or is it a guy, again, like Nussmeier that you try to get late in the second round coming off a good Senior Bowl week?
Is there a path where Muji is here a year from now and Glenn is not?
I would say as of today, probably not. I think they probably sink or swim together. I think Muji's here because of Glenn. I'd like to think ownership has learned the half measure method of keeping a GM without the head coach when you brought them in together is a challenge. Now, if the Jets have what is considered a really good offseason and it feels like they're underachieving to their roster talent, and there is a whiff that head coaches are excited to pair with Darren Muji, you got to take the information as it comes and be smart and be open-minded. I wouldn't bet on that being the case, but it's certainly not an impossibility. Certainly as it sits right now, Muji is the more popular of the 2. I know everyone likes the Kevin O'Connell connection. That's going to require the Vikings to really bottom out this year. And then you'll see who else is actually available.
If they move on from Glenn, let's play it out. Is Woody Johnson going to finally wake up and realize hiring first-time defensive coordinators to be a head coach is not the route the Jets need to go? Either hire the Mike Tomlin type, the Sean McDermott type, proven coach with experience, or hire the offensive coach, preferably with experience. But hey, Clint Kubiak, I'd love for him to be coaching the Jets right now, right? Is Woody going to finally open up and learn that it's just not working when you do the same thing over and over again and expect a different result?
I would guess they will try something different. If they end up firing Glenn after this year, which means it was an ugly 3-14, 4-13 type season, there will be immense pressure to either get an experienced head coach or someone with an offensive background, for better or worse. So I would guess that is where the pivot would go. That is what you would bet on.
Well, the best thing for the Jets might be Harbaugh going to the Giants. Yep. Because if the Giants are good and he turns things around, incentivize Woody to wake up and be annoyed with all the attention the Giants are getting, and he makes that big splash. I mean, when the Giants won their first Super Bowl in 07 with Eli and Coughlin, Jets trade for Brett Favre. Giants win the second Super Bowl in 2011. Jets trade for Tim Tebow. So, like, Woody's got a history of, like, the Giants are doing great. They get all the attention. He wants to make that move. The move could be, hey, give Mike Tomlin a 7-year contract for $200 million. Something like that. You need that type of coach to try and turn this around.
Nothing's out of the question with Woody Johnson, and we know he looks at the back pages. We know he cares what the Giants do. We know he cares what the Patriots do. Anything is out there and available. Can they get a president of football operations? Is that part of something they try to offer to a guy like a Tomlin or a McDermott who has some type of resume? It could be. I don't know. But I do think with Woody, you never want to write off any possibilities because he's getting old. He's rich. And, like, it's been a long time since this team has been good. So anything is on the table.
Let's talk about Badlands now.
Okay.
How surreal is it for you that you have a community of people who actually pay for a subscription podcast to hear about how awful the team we all love is doing?
I feel very blessed and humbled that Badlands has grown to the way it is, especially with the team being this bad. And I think when people kind of ask me about it, it's like, look, like, Jet fans need a place to commiserate. They need some co-therapy with how bad this stuff has been the last 15 years. And they also need, ideally, a pragmatic look at ways to get better on a daily basis. And we're very lucky that we have a really talented team who's able to keep a very high volume of content flowing every day. Obviously, led by Mr. CR over there on the stage, and Will and Paul and everyone at Meigs and everyone else who's cycling through with the content every week. So it's been a fun off season, fun in as it can be as someone who covers the Jets. And we're excited about everything we'll have going on. The draft guide, another event in April. We'll be busy.
Now, your day job, you're the president of Whistle Sports. So I'm always impressed just how level-headed you could be when talking about the Jets. But it makes sense because you're the president of a major media company. But I don't know how you do it because I this team makes me want to go crazy. I still remember Jets were involved in some debacle that happened, and you were tweeting through it, and KFC Barstool goes, Joe, I don't know how you're still doing this. I just saw that. I just laughed. I go, you've been at this for so long with, like, measured, level-headed takes on this dysfunctional mess that has been the Jets the last 15 years. I don't know how you do it.
I'm a little desensitized at this point. I feel like I've kind of seen everything. After seeing that Aaron Rodgers injury in person, it's very hard for something to, like, really hurt.
I was there too.
Yeah, like, really hurt or shock me. And I need the Jet fan therapy too. It's how I talk myself through it, by recording all these podcasts and batting ideas around with everyone in the Discord and on Twitter. And it has to turn around at some point. It will turn around at some point. The Jets were good for about a 15-year stretch. It's now been a 15-year stretch of them absolutely sucking. I will like to think the pendulum will swing back at some point sooner rather than later.
All right, a couple quick hitters for you before we let you run. Yep. What is your favorite memory as a Jet fan?
I was at the playoff game in '98 when they beat Jacksonville, and seeing the confetti come down and knowing they were going to the AFC Championship game. That's my number one.
That is a great number one. Is that the most recent Jet playoff game you've been at in person?
That is the only Jet playoff game I've been to in person.
Wow. Yeah. Well, there haven't been that many.
I was 11 years old, and now I'm 38.
That is tough. Now, you played Division III football.
I did.
Muhlenberg, right?
Yep.
Wide receiver.
Yep.
Do you think you could still suit up, go out there, and get in a couple reps in a game and not look horrific? Like, you could get by. You could maybe just get through a rep. You could block and get through.
I think if there was not press coverage, I could run for 5 yards, turn, catch the football, and immediately fall down. And that's about it. And I think I'll look all right in the equipment. But if I got tackled, I think I would be broken into a million pieces.
You would be an upgrade over what the Jets entered the year with, though, minus Garrett at wide receiver.
I take that as a compliment. And listen, I'm always available if the Jets are looking for a receiver, some consulting on off-season moves, and we're here to help.
All right, final question for you. The New York Jets start who week 1, 2026?
I will say Marcus Mariota.
Oh, well,
Get excited, baby.
I wouldn't be surprised by that.
Yeah.
All right, let's do it like this. The Jets quarterback room week 1 of 2026 is what?
Marcus Mariota, Garrett Nussmeier, and Tyrod Taylor, who's coming up next, so they keep around as a veteran mentor.
Tyrod about to join us. Joe, you were the man. I appreciate you hopping on, and I hope you enjoy your Super Bowl week, and maybe one day our team will be on that giant banner to our left with Sam Darnold and Drake May on it.
It's disgusting. But yes, thank you for having me.